Hello there. I am here bringing you a video with the TLDR on the gameplay advancement Siege of Atlas, Path of Exile, next expansion. Anyways, I wanted TLDR. Basically, just a summary. This will be a short version, and I'll talk into a longer version of it. A lot of hit spells are being made to have higher added damage because traps, mines, cast on crit, and damage over time builds, I guess, are too powerful. They're making it to where also weapons have higher amounts of added damage for spells and regular elemental, but reducing the amount of added gem damage you get from the added hit gems. They're also reducing Ignite's damage over time to be significantly less. They go for bows. What they kind of did here is saying bows are too weak, so we increase the amount of elemental damage available with bows, make it the same as two-handed, and then we went ahead and are trying to improve the damage of bows in general. Kind of an indirect nerf to two-handers. Yeah, added damage, as I mentioned before, the gems have gotten nerfed, about 50 damage per triggering marks. They said basically that your marks are now permanent and that you can have a skill that allows you to hit a rare or unique monster with this skill attached to your supporting mark, then it'll auto-apply the mark. Fortification damage, the problem was that they had high amounts of damage, but the enemies spawned, you wouldn't get any or even low amounts of fortification. So in which case, you're going to ignore the reduction of the target where you're applying your fortification. That's pretty much all of it that applies to most people. I don't think a lot of people use Hydro Spear. I mean, there are some people. That's kind of a quick of most people deal with it. Now let's go into more detail up here. Where do I want to start with this? I feel like okay, so I've did a quick video on what's that spell called that no one uses? Oh man, looks really cool because it's a Shaper Beam. Oh man, what was it? Oh, you know that skill. You know what skill I'm talking about. But they ignored Ignite damage. Well, Ignite damage is burning damage, which is all that laser skill does. That skill, I actually can't think about it at the moment. POE. Flame. I'm gonna recognize it as soon as I see it. Fireball, not fireball. Losing salvo, incinerate, now on a flame surge. Scorching ray. What's it? Scorching ray. So all it does is burn damage. So they're nerfing Ignite by 26%, which means they're lowering the damage of burning damage, because that's what Ignite is burning damage. Which means they're lower actually Scorching Ray's damage by 20%. It's already a skill that no one could really use or build off of. Not only that, but actually let me reread this. lower the damage of player ignite by, yeah. Actually offset the increase in ignite applying spells. Okay, so yeah, so a lot of them have higher added damage. However, Flame or Scorching Ray does not apply added damage. So if this affects it like it should, it's just getting a nerf of 26% for a skill that hardly anyone uses, mainly because it's a weak skill. And not only that, but they're also so it already had limited, types of effects you could apply to it, or limited skills you could add into it, and now it's taking it further. Why? And so, let's see what other things they had that was interesting. They're not interesting. But yeah, because they increased added weapon effectiveness on weapons, they decreased it on the spell one, which means that if you wanted to do something funky, like, you can't get added spell damage to two-handers, I don't think. At least not most of them. Except for staves, but if you wanted like a two-handed sword funkiness thing, you can't get added spell damage to it, so you kind of nerfed that a little bit. Kind of how people are doing that. But they also did some other things here, is that they hit these supports really hard. In fact, too hard. Like Awaken Cast on crit, they lowered it by 50% more damage. That's a whole fucking lot. Because you went from added 20 spell damage to less to what is it? Oh, 9%. Okay, so it's only 9% less, so that's actually not as hard. Oh, that's for the awakened one. What's the regular one? 19%. So it's 40% more reduction. And that is 30%. So it still reduces by 30% more. That's a whole keystone of the tree if you wanted to take it, with a value that you need to be on low life to earn. Now, for cast on crit, way too hard of a hit, I think. I mean, if you just got rid of it, it'd still be a 20% more reduction. I know this is for their added damage, because it increased the added damage, but wouldn't it be the better option is to raise the skills that aren't doing very good? I don't know. Let's see, they did anything cast with channeling, 30% less. I think it just did neutral. Didn't increase it or decrease it. Now it's 30% less, which is dramatic. That's kill. That's like 30% more reduction on this stuff. Just because it added damage. I mean, now that you reduce the sources of added damage too, there's quite a bit more of. Yeah, I mean, some of their added damage is significant, but some of them are not. Like this one, like Glacial Cascade. It basically increases by 20% additive. That's not very much. I mean, it's not a bad increase. I mean, the spell wasn't used very much. But in comparison to what they, the nerfs here, even more multipliers. Good. Like I said, also because they lowered the amount you can get from your hit based. We also have changes here. So they're nerfed the Trap damage, of course. Here's something that bugs me. They nerfed the Unleash because everyone was using Unleash. And made it to where you do 50% less damage. It's another 20% more reduction on using Unleash. And even at top end, it's still 20% less for damage. Very dramatic. Considering that it still takes whatever you have, even at the end, even if you have all this additive damage, that less multiplier is much, much higher. And Unleash is very useful for like arcane builds where you use your pump up your lightning damage and then you have a bunch of mana. You shoot all at once, it doesn't cost you your entire pool. And other builds, like, they use a ton of mana, but that's kind of nerfed to the point of it's really playable, but it's not going to be as playable as it was. A big nerf. I mean, huge. Pretty huge. Cast speed changes. I mean, they made it where it's easier to get cast speed, it looks like. Oh, we got some more verified for two-hand weapons, that's good. The jewels have been changed up to where they removed a lot of the certain effects, but then put it on base to where it still did like the circular, like for Fan of Knives, they removed the whole, it adds on 2 more projectiles or whatever, 2 more projectiles. Instead, makes it to where it's allowed to go in a circle, and that's it. Some of these things that they removed off of it actually made it's a bit of a nerf for those skills in general. Yeah. Good brand, foul, explosive arrows. Yeah, see, they don't mention Scorching Ray anywhere in here in these compensations either. I think they even forgot they're on Scorching Ray. Here, this one, the bow hit ones. A little bit frustrating because they're indirectly nerfing two-handers. And what I mean by that is that they're buffing up bows to the point to where, like, part of their thing with bows is that they were weaker than two-handers, but because you got a quiver, but you still got a 6-link on top of it. But now they're making it to where it has the same exact elemental damage as two-handers. And it has the Trowers now have damage just for bow skills. Which is, it's good for bows, but two-handers were already in not a very good place, and bows were much more used than that. So, I mean, where's the two-handers love? None. None. Let's see. Yeah, these are just in general. I told you about those weaknesses. So they're kind of... Yeah, they just added some spells. Let's see. Added fire prefixes open. Yeah, 30% higher, 35% higher for those, but the one-handed, I don't see. Oh, okay. It looks like they did put spells on two-handed. Okay, so that's not as bad. I don't think they had them at all really before. Urban marks, they put on this new, marks are now permanent. They don't need to apply them at all, pretty much. But then you can add on this new dexterity mark on hit. It makes it to where when you hit a unique or rare, it applies it auto for you. Also changed the Deny Ascendancy to make it to where the Deadeye will instead not afflict or are removed from dying enemies, but instead will transfer to a new enemy when the enemy dies. Can't say there's any much too important ones other than that. The detonate dead changes here I don't think are going to affect too many people because not too many people use that build. But it is a pretty fun explosion build, and it kind of evened out the damage, but did a slight nerf to it to the higher end damage, according to what they're saying. And then Fortification, one I mentioned earlier, should actually be good. Should actually allow you to get Fortification hit stacks more easily. In general, some unique stuff here, not too necessarily important, especially for the general audience who's not playing that far into the game. However, go into the new gems, so I wanted to take a look at them and talk about them for a moment. So they have this Divine Blessing support, which makes supported skills cost mana and have a duration. So what I believe what this seems to be doing, just by reading it, is it takes a skill that is like an aura that you have, such as Malevolence, turns it into a timed thing, because you don't need it all the time when you're going through packs of mobs. You really need some of these auras, mostly when you're fighting higher tiers and you're not quite geared enough. It'll most definitely help to have the auras. You're fighting rares or you're fighting uniques. So turns it into a duration based thing. Cast it, 300 mana, and then you can kind of just forget it and have to re-hit cast every time. And it's no longer reserved, but also has duration. And the base duration is 10 seconds. That's pretty long. Not bad. Although it does take away the set it and forget it kind of thing to it. Malevolence, I was thinking of, I don't think if you wanted to make, how does it make? It's like the opposite of using Blasphemy support. This one is kind of make it to where you can have one of the things be always there, but you can no longer have any other reservational skills, but to make it to where it doesn't reserve anything. So if your build you're trying to do is like going to have Zealotry support, and that's like the only support you want, nothing else for your build, and you can throw this on and it won't reserve anything. Apparently has a 5% effect, and you can only have one aura. We don't reserve any mana anymore, but you can't have another one. So, and then the last thing is it's the mark on hand support that we talked about earlier. So there's mostly is it's mostly buffs, to weapons and damage and stuff. This one, Sand Grenade, kind of, it's a good thing that they buffed it, but at the same time, what I really want them to do with this is, okay, at least for the physical damage part, is to be able to apply bleeds. In fact, I'd really like it if spells could apply bleeds. It just said physical damage applies bleeds, then I think it would buff the heck out of Eternal Knives, Single Knight, and the other ones. It would make physical builds, spell physical builds, more interesting, because right now they can apply poisons, they can't apply bleeds. I don't know why. Probably just something they kind of forgot. Or reap, yes, if you could do reap, that'd be good too. I don't think reap build is really a thing much, but if you could apply bleeds, and it makes a lot of sense with the reap, right? Cutting off their head, or... and it has a dot. I guess this is their bleed technically, but come on, I want an actual bleed. And these blade ones could also then apply bleeds, blade vortex. I'm doing a build last last season for fun. I think finish it up, but it was involving Eternal Knives and Cyclone making a poison build. It was great. It worked really good, surprisingly. You would throw out your Cyclone, and you want your Cyclone to do most of the damage, so you're basically building up spell damage. Then you're throwing your knives into it to stack up the projectiles in it up to 20, and then so your Cyclone is just kind of going over the place and killing everything. It was pretty good. It worked pretty good. I didn't get to end game very far because, well, as I said before, my how-to videos of this Path of Exile, I don't do much mapping, so a lot of mine stuff I say is probably more towards leaning towards middle ground players, people who just get to, you know, like 70s or 80s. That's it. High-end players, they would have a different point of view from this, maybe, or maybe the same. A lot of them get to where they're just so overpowered, I believe, that this stuff is kind of like easy mode. But for the middle ground players, it's not. I mean, if you know what you're doing, you know, for the middle or newbies, it's great. But in the beginning, this game, you know, this game's pretty hard. So from that perspective, all these kind of nerfs to things and makes it to where it's less like you don't want to invest in certain things too much. Also, there's a lot of RNG involved getting those. Almost like they increased the RNG when they did this, when they did the their problem solving by nerfing the uniques, or nerfing the gems. They nerfed the on-hit gems, the added gems, lightning, cold, fire added, and they increased the RNG for weapons, which means weapons, which are already really valuable, are now going to be more valuable, and gems are going to play less of a part to it. They're going to be less, they're not going to be used because there's still a good amount, but they're going to have less of a play in your weapon thing. So the end game becomes more weapons than building up what you can do with different modifiers. So it's actually makes it a little bit harder for people who are just like, I'm just going to go through this for fun. I don't really care if I have a super good weapon. If I have an okay weapon, you know, kind of leaning towards what I want, I can do my game. But now it's going to be like, there's a little bit more of, or there's going to be a little bit less of being able to do that and being more of, well, I kind of need a little bit better weapon. I need to be able to roll these weapons. And again, if you don't kind of know what you're doing, kind of a noob, it's less noob. It's less noob friendly. I wouldn't say super significantly, but it most definitely is. Especially since they're not going to be the ones who have a lot of currency. They're not Mathel. They're not Zizaran. They're not, you know, these always other people who play this game for hours and hours and hours and hours. They may for one day play it for like 10 hours or 16 hours straight. But also depending on how fast they get through the acts, you know, they may not sit there and end game very long. They may not even do end game at all. Of course, I don't know what the rate of new players is. This game, I know, scares off a lot of people initially just because of the gosh darn password rate. I wouldn't be surprised if it just there's nearly none. So people stay, or actually the people who end up in end game, I don't know. But I always think there should be something perspective a little bit towards the more casual audience. You know, maybe the casual audience, this one is like tier 10 or tier 5 maps. Maybe, I don't know, maybe tier 10 maps. I'm kind of the casual audience, but maybe I'm more casual than I think, or less. I don't know. Yet I looked up in the wiki for quite a bit to be as supposedly casual as I would be then. I don't know. I've said I don't know quite a few times. That's all I think. I know. Here, what is it? if it's really important. Those skills that have chaining or shockwave effects and multi damage against single targets by hitting the high sphere. Off. This maintaining ability prevent from improving certain bow skills. Flipping to 1 second. Okay, so they put an internal CDR in Hydrosphere. Interesting. Yes, I didn't know if it's that good or not. I didn't use that much. Anyways, thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, share, comment, and subscribe. I'm going to take a look down here before I go. Control F. Look for Scorching Ray, see if they did anything with it. Array, go type an array. Oh, I completely forgot about that skill ghost. Great. Hey, you like Scorching Ray? Cheers. Give it a really cool MTX that makes everyone want to buy it, but we're most definitely not gonna. Yeah. Okay, I'm done. Thank you guys for watching. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe. It's appreciated. Take care. Bye bye now.